Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. As India celebrated Dussehra on Tuesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged people to throw out forces using casteism and regionalism to divide the country. Addressing a huge gathering in the national capital, he said the festival should also mark the burning of ideologies that detract from India's development. It's a consistent message he has been given since Independence Day, where he has also asked people to take Panch Pran in the development of India in Amrit Kal. Now, these comments also come against the backdrop of the opposition party zeroing in on the demand for a nationwide caste census as one of the major poll planks for next year's general election. Remember, Congress MP Rahul Gandhi had even raised the slogan "Jitni Abadi, Utna Hak." Prime Minister Modi had earlier countered this as well, talking about how this policy or such a policy will ignore minority communities of the nation and will lead to majoritarianism politics, which is something that Congress otherwise opposes. Meanwhile, the India bloc has slammed the Prime Minister for mixing caste representation with caste oppression. They argue their demand is only to help the marginalized and backward. So is the caste census demand being used to divide the nation, or is it being done primarily to help those who need greater representation? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. But first up, let me break down how the Prime Minister approached this subject this Dussehra and how the opposition has reacted to his statements. So take a look at the Prime Minister's swipe first up. As far as this entire divide is concerned, or this entire demand is concerned, he didn't quite name anybody specifically, but he said that there is a bid to divide Ma Bharti in the name of casteism and regionalism. He combined both of these issues as problematic. The opposition's defense or counter is that there are BJP chief ministers also who are promoting regionalism in the states where they are. Prime Minister said that burn every deformity which deteriorates social harmony. Opposition says we cannot connect casteism or caste oppression, which is a separate issue, with the demand of caste census, which is a completely different issue and demand. Prime Minister also said, let this be, of course talking about Ravan Dhavan, let there be burning of those forces dividing India. Opposition says we are talking about caste representation, not oppression, so don't mix the two issues. Prime Minister also said, burn the ideas, this was his appeal to the public, burn the ideas which propagate the fulfillment of selfishness. Of course, this is a charge at the opposition, which says that Prime Minister should think about the aspirations of regional parties as well. Fundamentally, a lot of this demand for caste census, historically and even now, is coming from regional parties. But in this case, the Congress has also raised this issue extremely vociferously. Take a look at why the combined opposition is suddenly ahead of state and general elections raising this demand. Why are they clamoring for a caste census? Now, first of all, they say that this is there is no recent figures of caste breakup in the country. Remember, the last such data was published in 1931. They also argue that the data is key in deciding on appropriate schemes and systems for specific groups of people. Without that data, how are you going to service your population? But there is, of course, political reasons as well. This is seen as a move to disrupt BJP's success in bringing in an umbrella canvas of Hindu votes in its kitty, especially under Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the last 10 years. Now, Congress was also one of the parties or the major parties that suffered when the Mandal politics reared its head. Now, this time around, it sees this caste census and collaborative issue as one that could potentially save it from an existential crisis. This is, of course, remember, Congress receding in many states where it was in power and also becoming secondary to regional parties in some cases. This is also seen by the larger India bloc as that one issue that is seemingly uniting them against the BJP, because we're seeing that despite several press conferences or meetings, actually they haven't been able to get down to paper and sort out their differences. They keep rearing their ugly head. But the caste census is one issue where all opposition parties are continuing to unite. Now, every census in independent India from 1951 to 2011 has published data on scheduled castes and scheduled tribes alone, but not on other castes. It is said that decision to discontinue caste census was done due to economic and logistical reasons too, as it became a very heavy exercise. Before that, every census until 1931 had data on caste. In 1941, caste-based data was collected but not published. In fact, even in 2011, when the Congress was in power, this data was collected but that data was never released. Now, there's a reason that no party, when in government, wants to take this on. Let me break down just why caste census could be a bad idea for India. Now, remember, this decision to publish caste census or data was anyways taken to move away from quote divisiveness in society. It was considered post-independence that this will not promote national unity. Because caste has the tendency to increase social fault lines, it creates a lot of divisions on the basis of identity. It also pegs back the aim which is enshrined in our constitution by Dr. Ambedkar to create a casteless society. Because if you keep harping on someone's identity, in this case caste identity, it becomes very difficult to shed that identity and people will want to be associated with it and other people will associate you with that identity, especially if benefits get attached to that identity. Last but not the least, these demands are also coming in mostly from the more dominant groups who already have greater political heft. They've also been asking for greater reservations. Now, ultimately, while people may not say this openly, politicians may not say this openly today, caste census demand is to push for greater reservations in future for the larger caste groups, and that in itself can be a very, very tricky issue. So the big debate that's coming up today, the Prime Minister taking on this caste agenda, is this caste agenda or the caste census ultimately being used to divide India? We'll take that forward with our guests in just a bit.
उन शक्तियों का जो जातिवाद और क्षेत्रवाद के नाम पर मां भारती को बांटने का प्रयास।
जहां आपकी सरकार नहीं है वहां आप उस राज्य में अस्थिरता पैदा करें, फिर जातिवाद हो, धर्मवाद हो, सब कुछ हो, तो जिम्मेदार कौन है?
कास्ट सेंसस को वो जातिवाद के साथ जोड़ने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं जो बिल्कुल गलत है।
It is always BJP that talks about religion, and he has in his own cabinet there was a minister who said let all Muslims go to Pakistan.
Hello, Moto.
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Nikat Abbas is from the BJP. Professor Naval Kishore is the RJD spokesperson joining us. Mahima Singh from the Congress party. Krishna Hegde is the Shiv Sena spokesperson. This is the Shinde faction. And of course, Tushar Gupta is senior editor Swarajya magazine, all joining us. I do thank you for your time. Mahima Singh, let me begin with you. While the opposition may have a point that caste oppression is a separate issue, caste representation is a separate issue, I take that point. But fundamentally, is it not also true that the caste census demand is a foundation for caste-based reservation? And that caste-based reservation, as the Prime Minister also said, could ultimately lead to divide India and have more downfall, have more problems than any benefits for the country at large.
Jai Hind. Shivani, I would have agreed with you if ignorance was a better way of being, but I believe that while we live in a democracy like ours, where caste is a reality, where we know that BJP allies with smaller one caste community single parties, you see they go to any extent to fragment the OBCs from the Dalits and align with these parties so that they can cling to the power. The BJP has a very confused stance, Shivani. Because you see, when it comes to the Bihar caste census, Mr. Sushil Modi, a BJP Rajya Sabha MP, comes out and says, well, it was BJP's idea. And you would have not forgotten that before 2019, it was the very party which is now opposing it, the BJP, standing up for the caste census. They made headlines. Mr. Sushil Modi made headlines in 2019 when they said that if we win this election, we'll be conducting a caste-based census. And here is our Prime Minister. You see, a G. Rohini commission was constituted, and the report has never come out. Rather, there are loopholes that have come out. Rather, there are breaches that we may be hearing of. And apart from that, their own parties, MPs, MLAs make casteist, regionalist slurs. So when the Prime Minister talks of casteism and regionalism and getting rid of it, we are reminded of Ramesh Bidhudi's remark on the floor of the House, which was a very religionistic, remark. Then we are reminded of Pragya Thakur's remark. We did not hear a word.
Mahima Singh, remarks are one thing. Of course, that cuts across all parties. I don't think the Congress can be escaping that. But that doesn't mean policy. Policy is different than what an individual remark is. Also, I may repeat my question. My question to you was this. The demand for a caste census, is it not ultimately a foundation being made for Jitni Abadi Utna Haq? What Rahul Gandhi said. And is that fundamentally not the problem here? We are not a democracy that functions on the basis of numbers alone.
I would reiterate what I said earlier, that, see, ignorance is bliss for parties like BJP, and we don't want to live in ignorance. When our leader Shri Rahul Gandhi asks for a caste census, when he raises questions of the participation of the OBCs in, high posts, he makes a relevant point. He compels all of us to think, pause and think, what are we doing? Do we have enough number of, inclusivity of all communities and castes across media, across judiciary, across bureaucracy, across various high segments of the society?
Fair enough, that's a worthy cause. But I asked you again, I repeat my question for the third time. Is the caste census the basis for caste-based reservations? Should the Congress party not clarify that?
Well, Shivani, I believe we are here fighting for a caste census, for counting how many, for seeing who has how much share. Thereafter, we can make policies around it. I think it's too early. We are right now fighting an ideology which is against caste-based census, which has not brought out the data that of the socio-economic caste census that we conduct.
UPA didn't either. You had opportunity for 10 years. In fact, the Congress governments in the past have opposed even mandal politics.
And we did a socio-economic caste census in 2011, the data of which was not, see, they are a double engine government. They boast all the time, they endorse all the time. So a double engine government, as the BJP could have well brought out the data that we collected.
I'm not asking you about the BJP. I'll ask about the BJP to the BJP spokesperson. I'm asking you to elaborate your standpoint. Do you not fundamentally believe that Jitni Abadi Utna Haq is going to destroy this country? That's the message the Prime Minister is sending. I'll come back to it. Let Nikat Abbas respond to this. Nikat Abbas, fundamentally, there are obviously BJP leaders, both in states and otherwise, who have made these demands in the past. You cannot also make it in some states and then oppose it nationally, is the fundamental point the Congress is raising. Why doesn't the BJP also clarify its stance on the caste census? You're also not touching it because it's a hot potato for you.
You know, Shivani, we need to make the difference out right now that what the government before 2014 were doing and what Modi government post 2014 has done. You know, we all know that how before 2014, when UPA was in power, they were completely using the toolkit of governance based on the casteism, appeasement, family politics and corruption. However, post 2014, when Modi ji has come in power and he became the Prime Minister, the political shift we all have seen is completely on nation building, not on family politics. It is doing what it is supposed to do, bringing reforms in the country, making India the world's one of the best economy. India achieving in the record, you know, India is registering its name. We are making a name worldwide. That is a completely shifted and a changed outlook we all have seen. What we oppose is that people, a lot of opposition party leaders are promoting treachery over patriotism, and which is why we see opposition leaders, senior leaders of that, even Rahul Gandhi, promoting Bharat Tere Tukde Honge, a slogan like Brahmans Bharat Chodo. That is what we oppose. Even Rahul Gandhi, when goes to abroad, you know, promoting and defaming Hindutva, calling it ISIS and Boko Haram. Also Priyank Kharge, and we saw how Stalin had defamed Hindutva.
No,
You
no.
know,
Are you
he
saying
did
asking once
compare
again,
Hindutva with
Nigat,
ISIS
are you
and Boko
saying
Haram.
asking for a caste census is treachery? Is that what you're saying?
See, all I am saying is that people who are promoting treachery, like these people are doing on the basis of caste, when you say you need a caste census, you need to look at the larger point that you cannot go and abuse Hindutva and promote like Priyank Kharge did. Udayanidhi Stalin.
No, why are you mixing this to-
Hindutva and comparing it with diseases like dengue?
That's
and
a
malaria?
separate
No, these
issue,
are-
Nigat.
no,
Why
this
are you
is the
comparing
reality.
that to?
And
Let's stick to the subject. Let's
Shivani,
talk
it is
about
not.
caste census.
Shivani,
What is the
yeah,
BJP
I am
stance
sticking to
on
the
that?
subject, which is why I am saying
Okay.
Hindu. See, my friend, Shivani, it is completely relatable to each other. When they talk about caste count, when they talk about head count, and when they talk about this, that jitni hissedari utni bhagedari, is it not important to talk about Hindutva? Is it not important to talk about every caste? All I am saying is, you should not be having dual face. My friend just talked, my colleague from Congress party has just spoken about dual face. I think Rahul Gandhi and Congress party has a dual face, and which is why you keep talking about Hindutva, against Hindutva and abusing Hindutva. All I am saying is, yes, we do need a caste census. It is important. I do understand it is supposed to be there for the head count. But why is that you're building a politics over that? Is it the basis of that? Isn't the basis of the government should be bringing reforms to the politics, bringing the policies which can help the poor, the serve.
No, but the opposition's argument is that this will help.
Even that is important.
No, absolutely. But the opposition's argument is that having this data will ultimately help in targeting those who really need those reforms, or you could cater those reforms in a better way.
Shivani,
Reservation is one aspect, but catering schemes and
easy said
policies
than done
better
for the
is another
opposition.
aspect.
It is easy said than done for the opposition. We've seen how they have ignored it since so many years. When they did it in 2011, why did they not publicize it?
Because
why
they went out of
not bring
power.
it on board and literally told the people what it is all about. Post 2011 they didn't. They could have done in 2013, they could have done in 2012, they could have done it in different states, but they didn't. They chose to
Okay,
be
they are
quiet on
offering
that.
this in
We
various
know how
states
the
now, so
political
we'll have to
system
hold the
or
Congress.
opposition is
No,
doing
we'll
right
have to
now.
hold Congress, of course, true to its
They
promise.
will,
They are
they will.
offering this in
When
many,
they
many
have to
states
vote,
now.
Shivani,
Whether
when
they
they
actually
need
do
votes,
it or
when
not
they
is a
want to do
separate
the
issue.
appeasement
Once
politics,
again,
certainly they will.
no, Nikat, let me go across to some other guests. Professor Naval Kishore of the RJD is joining us. I ask you the same question I asked the Congress party. Fundamentally, caste census demand is tied with this idea that OBCs need greater reservations. They are supposed to be maybe more than 50%, 60%, but they only have 27% reservation as per the current system. Scheduled castes and scheduled tribes get a reservation which is fairly equitable to their population size. Am I right or not? Ultimately, this is about increasing reservations for OBCs.
Yes, Shivani, you are very right. You know what Constitution promised, that those who are socially and educationally backward, their status should be studied and recommendations should be made. Of late, the second backward commission, which recommended for OBC reservation, said that even though the population of OBC is 52%, since there is cap of 50% by Supreme Court, therefore 27% reservation can be given. Once through the EWS, that cap has been broken, the demand has come. And this demand, even the first backward commission, second backward commission, Mungeri Lal commission has said in their report that had there been the contemporary data on caste, we could have given the better recommendations.
Okay.
So this caste data is something which suggests and says what is the state of caste-based inequality.
Okay, so now I come to my fundamental question.
Inequality,
Thank you for answering my question that this is tied to the reservation demand. Now I come to my fundamental question. अगर जितनी आबादी है उसके हिसाब से reservation मिलने लगा तो फिर equality की बात ही कहाँ रह जाएगी? तो फिर merit की बात ही कहाँ रह जाएगी? Don't you think fundamentally this is not a progressive idea? You cannot tie reservations to the numbers we have. Forget about the fact that only the greater population chunks will get those benefits, and this will lead to majoritarianism of another kind.
शिवानी जी, आपका जवाब अगर मैं देना चाहूं तो राम मनोहर लोहिया को आप गलत सिद्ध नहीं कर सकते जब उन्होंने कहा कि संसो पाने बांधी गांठ पिछड़ा पावे 100 में 60। उनको मालूम था कि ये जो पिछड़े हैं वो जानबूझ के जातिगत गैर बराबरी के हिसाब से पीछे हैं, इनको आगे बढ़ाने के लिए इस तरह का कार्यक्रम आना चाहिए।
बट आप मुझे बताइए कि सारे कास्ट वाले, आप मुझे बताइए कि सारे ओबीसीज क्या सारे ओबीसीज क्या पिछड़े हैं? आप अगर कह रहे हैं 52% है, 52% को दे दो रिजर्वेशन, तो इसमें पिछड़ा और अगड़ा कहां हुआ? आप तो सबके लिए मांग रहे हैं।
शिवानी जी, जानकारी को करेक्ट कर लीजिए। ये जो 60% की बात हो रही है ना, उसमें ऑलरेडी इकोनॉमिक इशू भी है। आपने क्रीमी लेयर को नहीं देखा है क्या? क्रीमी लेयर जब लगाया गया कास्ट बेस्ड इनइक्वालिटी को समझने के लिए और सोशली और एजुकेशनली बैकवर्ड को देखने के लिए, तो उसमें इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर भी है। उसी इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर के आधार पे आप ईडब्ल्यूएस को रिजर्वेशन दे रहे हैं। तो इफ यू वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड द पॉलिसी ऑफ रिजर्वेशन, इट इज वेरी वेरी राइट टू टॉक इन दिस टर्म्स। नाउ इट कम्स जिसकी आबादी जितनी है उसकी क्यों नहीं हो, तो उसके लिए आप अगर देखेंगे तो जो अवसर सरकार में है वो कितने परसेंट है? 2 से 3% है। पूरा निजी क्षेत्र, पूरा जुडिशियरी, पूरा मीडिया में कहां रिजर्वेशन है? अगर आप इस बात को देखना चाहें तो जो अवसर है पूरे देश में, उस अवसर में तो पिछड़ा कहीं है ही नहीं।
तो आपको लगता है कि
पॉलिसी नहीं है
जो दिस इज द फंडामेंटल इशू। वन सेकंड नवल जी, अब आप रुक जाइए एक सेकंड। दिस इज द फंडामेंटल इशू। लेट मी गो अक्रॉस टू तुषार गुप्ता आल्सो। फंडामेंटली अपॉर्चुनिटी इज बीइंग टाइड विद रिजर्वेशन, एज आई अंडरस्टैंड एंड एज थ्योरी अंडरस्टैंड्स इट। There is a separate concept of equal opportunity, but equal results is not guaranteed. And if you start guaranteeing equal results or equal outcomes, that leads to a perversion of the system. It's a very clear distinction. You have to offer everybody equal opportunity, but you cannot tie. One second, Naval ji, एक second.
You do not know the nature of society.
थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक यू वेरी मच। नहीं, थैंक यू वेरी मच। आपने जजमेंट दे ही दिया है तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। प्रोफेसर नवल किशोर, प्लीज होल्ड योर थॉट, प्लीज होल्ड योर थॉट, अदर गेस्ट्स आर आल्सो वेटिंग। आपने जजमेंट दे ही दिया कि आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड द नेचर ऑफ सोसाइटी, आई वेलकम योर जजमेंट, बट आई नीड टू बी एबल टू से व्हाट आई वांट टू से। तुषार, दिस इज फंडामेंटली द इशू where it is being argued that if you are 60% of the population, 60% of you should have reservation in what is otherwise based on merit to bring you forward. But they're not talking about the fact that reservations were only guaranteed for both socially and educationally backward. There is now, and of course, an economical backward EWS quota, but even that was not what the Constitution talked about.
You know, Shivani, there is not one policy, economic, developmental, progressive impact of caste census on the overall economy. All these people who are over-intellectualizing the utility of the caste census, not one of them can tell us how will it have a progressive impact on the overall macroeconomy, on development of both macro and micro aspects of the economy, on policy making, on infrastructure, or anything basically. The Congress spokesperson here says casteism is a reality, and I feel sad for the Congress because once upon a time there was leader Indira Gandhi who said we need to get rid of casteism. Today the Congress, infiltrated by the left, wants to encourage that casteism again, citing it as a reality and making the excuse of inclusivity. Now you pick up any BJP policy from the last 10 years, you pick up a few Congress policies from their UPA 1 and UPA 2 era, they were not tied to caste, they were tied to economic development, and they did not care about equal results, they cared about opportunities, they cared that everyone had equal access to opportunities, and the results then depend on merit. And I'm sort of worried, Shivani, that both the RJD and the Congress spokesperson have raised this question about representation in the media and judiciary. Now my question is, if Congress forms the government tomorrow, will it interfere with the judiciary when it comes to the composition of judges? Will they encourage private sector reservations because they're questioning the composition of caste-based hiring media? So look, they'll start with the caste-based census today. Tomorrow it will be about tweaking the government reservation policies in exams and jobs and so on. Day after tomorrow, they'll question private sector reservation. Now, we all know that private sector reservation is the end of investment in this country. No company, private limited, wants to be governed by such obsolete laws. So my question is that why is the opposition, which of course is not ruled by merit, it's ruled by dynastic politics.
Can I respond?
Sir, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Hold your horses. Yes. No, Tushar, this is also unfortunately harking back to a time when in India it was argued that for Muslim population, for example, there should be a separate, Muslim representation. The argument was that only Muslims can govern Muslims and Hindus may be governed by Hindus. Now, if you continue to argue that in politics, in parliament, in judiciary, in media or any other sector, there should be equal representation, then you're arguing that only the people from your own community can govern you or rule you. That's not how India can function.
Absolutely. Shivani, one more point. The opposition keeps talking about jitni abadi, jitna haq, but where does it leave the minorities of this country?
Precisely.
The Muslims, which are make up for a very small minority in many
You do
states.
not know this.
Jains, Sikhs, Buddhists. What happens
You
to
do
them?
not know this.
What
You
happened
look-
to
you
the
study
Muslim
Bihar
Maharashtra?
census.
Where does it leave?
They are both
their
Hindus and
larger
Muslim.
scheme of things?
In
So
OBC.
when Rahul Gandhi says jitni abadi utna haq, is he advocating for no presence of Hindus?
Yeah,
in the
he's making, just one second Tushar, I have to go across to Krishna Hegde as well, then I'll go across to Naval Kishore. Krishna Hegde, ultimately the Congress and the opposition also feels that this is that one issue that they can put back the BJP and of course the larger NDA, because the BJP and the NDA are also extremely nervous, possibly a little unsure of where they want to be as far as the issue of the caste census is concerned.
No, Shivani, let me tell you one thing. The Congress ruled our country for 60 years, both in the center and in the state. And now when they are failed to do things, it is the typical case of ulta chor kotwal ko date and point the blame at everyone else, that is the BJP and the allies. So I don't think people buy that. Secondly, the Honorable Congress spokesperson was also talking about census. What happened in Bihar or is happening is they can't, it's not a census, it is a survey.
It's a survey, yes.
The Census Act says that only the center is authorized to take a census and make the numbers. With Bihar, Bihar spokesperson is also here, my friend Naval Kishore. I must tell you that he also can tell you the same thing. This entire survey for 13 crore people was taken in 15 days only. So what kind of legitimacy does this survey have? It doesn't have. You can't do a survey of 13 crore people in 15 days and say,
why don't you do the legitimate one?
Okay, but let's leave that issue aside. Krishna Hegde, on the fundamental issue of whether a caste census should happen or not, what is your stand?
See, the center has to decide on it, and it is not the state which can decide on it. However, if we are doing a survey, the data in all aspects is very important. Suppose we have to present the Maratha reservation in court or some other issue in court, or whether we have to give benefits to the people, we have to have some data in hand. Secondly, let me tell you, the Honorable Prime Minister spoke about two issues. He spoke about one, how the data of the casteism is being exploited and misused, and second, he spoke about patriotism. What the Honorable Prime Minister has always done in the last 9 years is sabka saath, sabka prayas, sabka vikas.
Nothing.
No, that is what you are saying. Then I can also say, Naval Kishore, that you are doing only chara gotala, and every time you open your mouth, you can only
not
think
done
about
anything,
chara.
sir.
No, not like
Please
this.
realize.
Please take him off here, please. Krishna Hegde.
Nothing has been done.
Krishna Hegde, but ultimately the point is this, there are parties, both the BJP and like yourselves, allied with the BJP, who have also asked for caste-based quota, breaking that 50% threshold. So how do you complain about the opposition playing politics on this when you've done the same?
No, obviously, you see, we are committed to the people of the state. We are committed to the Marathas. We are committed to the OBC. We are committed to all sections of people in Maharashtra. And therefore, whatever best, this is a government which works. It's not like the Uddhav Thackeray government which sits at home, goes to Mantralaya for 2.5 years, 2.5 hours in 2.5 years, and then tries to take decision from home and doesn't work. We are a government which works for the people and for the people and by the people. And therefore, we will do everything for the people. Janhit और लोकहित में तो हम काम करते ही रहेंगे.
Okay, is Janhit and Lokhit then so tied with caste identity and reservations alone is a question the larger Indian polity should ask itself. Where are we going? These reservations were anyway supposed to have a sunset clause. We've never heard about a sunset clause anymore. Yes, Naval Kishore, I'll give you a minute. You said कि बिहार में जो सर्वे हुआ उसमें हिंदूज भी हैं, मुस्लिम्स भी हैं, ओबीसीज में. आप मुझे बताइए कि मुस्लिम्स में तो कास्ट नहीं होती, तो फिर मुस्लिम्स कैसे आ गए ओबीसी डेटा में?
नहीं, मैं कि कर्पूरी ठाकुर ने जब लागू किया कोटा विद इन कोटा 1977 में मुंगेरीलाल कमीशन आयोग के आधार पे, तो उन्होंने एनेक्सर 1 एनेक्सर 2 में जिन जातियों का चर्चा किया उसमें हिंदू और मुस्लिम से संबंध रखने वाले जातियां भी थी व्यवसाय के आधार पे। ये सिर्फ ये कहना जातियों की जानकारी होने से जातिवाद फैल जाएगा, ये कितना हास्यास्पद है।
नहीं, चलो वो बात मैं मान लेती हूँ, जातियों की जानकारी से जातिवाद नहीं फैलेगा, लेकिन अगर जाति के नाम पे रिजर्वेशन होगी तो जातिवाद फैलेगा ना।
क्या जब प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने कहा कि मैं ओबीसी का हूँ, जातिवादी से क्या हूँ? जब उन्होंने कहा कि राष्ट्रपति जो है वो दलित समाज से हैं, वो जातिवादी थे।
नहीं, रिजर्वेशन किया क्या जाति के नाम पे?
बताइए जातिवाद का परिभाषा क्या है, ये क्या है आप बताइए तो पहले। जाति का जानना, जातियों के विषय जाति है सदियों से,
वो तो मैं मान रही हूँ ना आपकी बात, उससे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, किसी को होना चाहिए, डेटा सेंसस भी हो जाए, लेकिन क्या रिजर्वेशन जाति के नाम पे होनी चाहिए?
बिल्कुल, ये संविधान कहता है, आपने पढ़ा नहीं है?
संविधान नहीं कहता है, ये संविधान नहीं कहता है।
वो क्या है जो हिस्टोरिकल इंजस्टिस में एससी एसटी आते हैं, उसका आधार क्या है?
तो हिस्टोरिकल इंजस्टिस के नाम पे ओबीसी को भी रिजर्वेशन मिला है ना, लेकिन जितनी आबादी उतना हक कहना क्या सही है, ये फंडामेंटल इशू है। ओबीसी रिजर्वेशन तो ऑलरेडी है सामाजिक तत्वों की। एनीवेज, आई एम रनिंग आउट ऑफ टाइम, लेट मी गिव 30 seconds to Mahima as well. Mahima,
I wanted to add here, Shivani, that one quickly remembers how the BJP hastily withdrew its affidavit from the Supreme Court when it actually said the census is a union subject, but then they withdrew that affidavit because you see they've fragmented the single community groups there. And apart from that, Tushar Gupta said earlier that I said casteism is a reality. No, I said caste is a reality. Caste discrimination is a reality. And what Indira Gandhi ji said stands true to the date. We need to get rid of that discrimination. We need to get rid of that mindset. However, to be able to do that, we need to strike the balance of equity and equality, and that can only be done when you work with statistics and data, and that is exactly
fair enough. I repeat my point though, equality does not mean a guarantee of outcomes. Equality means equal representation and opportunity, but that representation cannot guarantee outcomes. Reservations seek to guarantee outcomes, and it can be a dangerous, non-progressive path for India. I'll have 15 seconds for Nigat as well. Nigat, only for 15 seconds, please.
The question is, why has there been no
You know,
census?
Shivani, I'll tell you that how Congress party has in the past always used the reservation with the appeasement. In Karnataka also, they had given reservation to OBCs 27%, but they had to snatch 4% from the OBCs reservation and give it to the minority Muslim community. Why is that? You could not give a separate reservation. They've used always for the appeasement. Also, they did same in Kerala, in South, when they had given the reservation to OBC 27% once again, but they again snatched 4% and gave it to Christians and Muslims collectively because they wanted to do the appeasement politics.
Okay.
Now, I have just one question, that why is that post-independence you had 250 chief ministers, but out of that only 25 at that the OBC is chief minister. And when we talk about Bharatiya Janata Party, more than 21 chief ministers we have OBC out of 68 chief ministers in India. That is how we've been dealing. And even in the member of parliament, we have 113 member of parliament who come from the OBC community.
Okay, so fair enough. So this is what I'm talking about. Representation means that out of your fold, you do give equal representation. For example, when government formation is happening. But representation does not mean that according to your population numbers, you will get the similar amount of percentage in a government. That's not representation then. That perverses completely the idea of a reservation or of a representation. But I've run out of time. I'll take this forward with our guests from our various parties later on Plain Speak as well. But I have to move on. I thank them for joining us.